today on Divorce Court.
I am here to save my marriage.
30 years ago, we could talk about anything. As the years have gone by, the communication is going by too. My wife, she definitely needs to get help with her temper and with the disrespect towards me.
His addiction has made me feel less than a wife. He has changed in those years.
My wife wasn't able to trust me because of my opioid addiction and the lies through that time.
Rodney, I need you to be more compassionate and more affectionate towards me.
I do see myself spending the rest of my life with Cherise, but we have to get these issues under control.
Divorce Court is now in session.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here today with Rodney Fry and Cherise Fry. The two of you have been together for 30 years. Wow. Married for 23. You guys are in trouble. You want some help, so you came to see me. Mr. Fry, I'm going to start with you. Why don't you tell me what's going on and why we're here in Divorce Court today?
We're here this morning, Your Honor, because my wife has a serious anger problem.
Okay.
We're like Bonnie and Clyde. We've been together over 30 years. We've been through a lot together, so much together. I still love her, but we have to get to the bottom of this anger issue.
Give me an example of a time when she's gotten angry about something she didn't need to be angry about, or the level of her anger was wrong.
We're former restaurant owners. There were a time when we owned a restaurant where simple arguments might have started over the timing of the food going out for the guests. And it just wasn't handled the right way. Plates were thrown, pots were thrown in the restaurant. We lost customers behind that, and eventually the restaurant fell behind that.
Were you throwing pots and pans at the restaurant and the customers were leaving?
I was throwing pots and pans, and there were no customers in the building at that time, so that's not true. It was
now,
just
what
me
were
and
you
him.
throwing pots and pans about?
We argue all the time, and it just got to a level where I just couldn't deal with it anymore. And then the lying, to me, just like he just told a lie. He doesn't remember a lot of the story, so it turns into a lie. I know my actions, and I'll take credit for the things that I do.
Now, Mrs. Fry, why don't you tell me what you believe is the primary issue in this relationship?
Mr. Fry has an anger problem, a major anger problem. We can discuss doing something in the home, and I'll go to work, and then when I come home, it isn't done. And I'll ask Mr. Fry, why isn't it done? He goes berserk.
When you say berserk, give me an example.
He goes off, and then he has an attitude. You're always blaming me of this. You're always accusing me of this. I'm tired of this, and I'm tired of that. He packs up his things, puts them in a car, and rolls out.
Do you back up and go every time you guys argue?
Of course.
Every single time.
Every single time.
Every single
Yes,
time.
I do. Yes, I do. Every single time.
Every single time.
Every
Now,
single
Mr.
time.
Fry, why do you do that?
Because to stay safe, first of all.
Stay safe.
First of all, to stay safe. Secondly, I have that much love and respect for it to go further than an argument. So I just remove myself from that situation. There's been other times where anger has been an issue. We were living in a very nice community.
Right.
And we had an argument, and she leaves the house, and she walks down the street and pulls her pants down and tells me to kiss her backside. And I'm standing in the house in the doorway like, wow.
Did you pull your pants down in public?
Yes, I did. Yes, he drives me crazy. Yes, he drives me.
You pulled your pants down in public.
To him. There was nobody else around. To him. Yes, I did, Your Honor.
How old were you when you did that?
I'm 52 now, so it could have
Last
been
year.
5 years ago. Who knows?
That was last year. It was last year.
You're a grown woman.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, I am.
You should know better than that.
Mr. Fry drives me crazy.
What did he do that made it necessary for you to moon him?
I
don't even remember.
I can't remember. That's how much stuff is done.
Okay.
It's
You
on a
say that at
constant.
one point things devolved into a car chase. Why don't you tell me about that circumstance?
One time I stayed out overnight, and she's in her vehicle. I'm in my vehicle. She sees me coming down the street. Bam, she takes her vehicle with our kids in the car and smashed my vehicle head on. Head on. And I just calmly rolled around and tried to get away from that.
But you're not saying why you stayed out all night. You was out all night getting high off of crack.
That's not the point.
You didn't say that.
That's
You didn't
not
say
the
that.
point.
And we're going to talk about what might be underlying all of this in a moment. Mrs. Fry, crack or no crack, why would you take a car full of children and ram it into somebody else's car?
I hadn't seen my husband in over 2 weeks. He's in a crack house with women.
Mm-hmm. So putting your children in danger
I probably did at that moment.
is a rational response to that.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
I mean, that's just outrageous, Mrs. Fry.
I agree.
It seems to me, at the end of the day, you're in charge of your emotional house, no matter who's banging at the door.
I agree. I agree.
And you can't put your life at risk, your kids' life at risk, and everybody else on the road, because you just, all bets are off, I can do anything.
Yes, after being called all kinds of B's and all kinds of hoes when I've only been with you.
Tell me what he said.
He calls me B's and hoes all the time. I've never been with anybody else other than my husband ever since we've been married or before then.
Does he accuse you of cheating, or that's just the names he uses when he's mad? It's just the name that he calls me.
He tells me that I was with this person before I met him. Why are we talking about situations or guys that I've been with before we got married?
Are you riding on her about her sexual history? I mean, you've been together for 30 years. Do you call her out her name?
Yes, I have, and I'm wrong. I'm sorry. But for years, and I'm talking about 15, 20 years, I've been the husband that hasn't said a word, hasn't said one word to her nasty temper and how she demeans me and brings up my past into our present. Sure, I had a drug addiction. I've been off of those drugs for over 15 years. Over 15 years.
No relapse in that 15 years, no relapse?
I'm actively in counseling for over 3.5 years. And she has a problem with that.
So I see the underlying problem that we have.
Yes.
So I think we really need to step back and talk about that history a little bit so we can get to how we got here and maybe how we can get to where we want to be.
Mr. Fry, maybe 3 weeks ago, borrowed money from one of my co-workers' husbands. I was so embarrassed.
Mr. Fry, did you ask one of her co-workers' husbands for money? So, Mrs. Fry, I think I'm understanding the source of your frustration. Why don't you give me a little bit of his history with respect to his drug abuse?
Oh, he lifts up dressers, he throws them. We have about 7 or 8 holes in our walls at home now because of his anger. It's hard to live with a person like that. He's getting help for his addiction, but what kind of help am I getting? It's all coming on me. When he's not there, he's in jail, I'm taking care of my kids. I'm working full time. He doesn't. He's been home for over a year and hasn't worked and contribute to bills.
The bills get paid, Cherise.
Yeah, they get paid somewhere or another, but are you working?
They get paid.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Fry, do they get paid because she's paying them?
She pays them, but I make a way to get the bills paid too.
Yeah, he makes a way. What way?
I make a way to get the bills paid.
How do you? Don't admit to any criminal activity.
No,
That's it. We're going to move on.
I'm a chef. I do odd jobs. I do catering jobs. I provide. Now we've been married 30 years. So you saying a year? 1 year out of 30?
No, it's been several years in between. You're very forgetful.
Let me ask you this, Ms. Fry. I understand how difficult it is to live with an addict. And I know that I can't even have an inkling about the constant pressure that it must be, because it takes money out of the house.
Yes.
Sure.
It puts crime in the house.
Yes.
The attitude and the mood swings, just horrendous.
Constantly.
Everybody becomes addicted when you're addicted, because everybody's living that addiction.
Yes.
But once he stopped, are you still living on the roller coaster that he took you on and not gotten off?
I certainly am. Mr. Fry, maybe 3 weeks ago, borrowed money from one of my co-workers' husbands. I had no idea that he did that. She came and confronted me about it and said, let me tell you about what your husband did. I was so embarrassed.
Mr. Fry, did you ask one of her co-workers' husbands for money?
It was a man-to-man situation. It was between 2 men. having a
Apparently not, 'cause he
conversation.
told.
Exactly.
Between two men having a conversation. That's how it was instructed to me from him. Whatever his wife told her, that was between him and her. How Cherise took it, she took it the total wrong way.
Because
she took it like I was doing something slimy, underhand, and sneaky. It wasn't for her to know. It wasn't for her to know, or I would have told her. Because it was
there's
from
a lot
two
of
men.
things for me not to know in our relationship.
Let me propose this to you, and I get that. Man to man, something was happening. He should have told his wife is where the problem had. But
Right.
since that was someone in her orbit, it was her co-worker's husband.
Sure.
That might have been where you made your misstep.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because
Yes,
you're
ma'am.
dragging your business into her place of business.
Sure,
That's
but not
correct.
intentionally. It wasn't my intent to do that.
A lot
And
of
it was
things
the need was more important that day. What she's not saying is why I had to ask that man for the money for the
Why?
gas. Because we were going out of town to a family member's graduation, and there was no other way.
Yeah,
it
but-
would have happened.
but you
and
weren't
then
working,
I don't want to
though.
ask
You
her.
weren't working.
I don't want to ask her for things.
Why not? You ask me every
Because Mrs. Fry.
Oh, my Lord.
Because it always comes back to you're an addict.
I haven't said that in years.
She's not supportive of me going to
That
these
is not
meetings.
true.
When I go to these meetings and I come home in a jolly mood, it's like you're more friends with those people down there.
Than you are with me.
It's true.
I got you. And we're going to talk about all that, but I gotta figure out, for my own edification, when we say addict, are we saying any recent relapse? How long ago was it the last time you had a relapse, and what occurred as a function thereof? That's what I got to
But
figure
let's
out.
ask Cherise.
Mr. Fry, I applaud what you've done by going there and getting back.
But I got so much to do. That ain't nothing. I got so much to do, so much more to do.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, ma'am.
In the part where you're supposed to make amends, what kind of amends did you make to Mrs. Fry? So, Mrs. Fry, why don't you tell me, when was the last time he relapsed?
What I know of,
Uh-huh.
when we were in that restaurant, he was using heroin.
Give me months. How
You're
long
talking
ago?
4 years.
Years?
We're talking 4 years ago that we
4
were in
years ago?
Yeah, 4 years ago that we were in that restaurant that he admitted to me that he was on heroin because he had a back problem. He got addicted to pain pills, and the pain pills wasn't doing enough, or he couldn't get to the pain pills. He started using heroin.
Right.
Every day I'd come home, I'd find a bag on our floor with powder in it, and I couldn't figure out what is this powder. Mr. Fry was nowhere around to be found. He would come home at night. When he come home at night, he'd go straight in another room and go to sleep. Lock the door so I couldn't question him about nothing. This went on for months. That was one of the reasons why I threw pots in that restaurant. I was so frustrated and embarrassed.
Mr. Fry, what is your response to that, if any?
4 years ago, as she said, 4
Right.
years ago.
Right.
I've been in treatment now for 4.5 years. I ain't relapsed in that time.
So you say.
Mrs. Fry, let me ask you this. Within that 4 years, what kind of conduct that he is engaged in that continues to anger you? Because and I'm not saying, oh, well, he stopped and you should be fine. I'm not saying that at all. But I want to know what he's been doing in this last 4 years, and are you giving him credit where credit's due?
Definitely, I support Rodney, my husband, 100% in anything he do. As far as him going to meetings, I'm glad that he's in meetings and getting himself some help. But to me, he uses it as another tool. These are becoming
A tool to do what?
These are his friends. He comes home and tells me, oh, such and such relapsed on crack last week. This person relapsed on crack last week. I don't want to hear that because it's putting me in that frame of mind where we were 15 years ago. You're around these people that are still using.
And I'm with you, Mrs. Fry, and I'm going to work with you a little bit. But he's an addict. That's
Yes.
what that is.
Yes.
And to treat addictions, you got to go to those meetings. And that's part of his life, and that's part of his day-to-day.
I agree.
And I understand it triggers what was, but you have to work with what is and not let your emotional life determine what your tomorrow's going to be
I agree.
based on what happened yesterday.
agree.
Mr. Fry, I applaud what you've done by going there and getting back.
But I got so much to do. That ain't nothing. I got so much to do, so much more to do.
Right.
And I'm going to do it.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, ma'am.
In the part where you're supposed to make amends, what kind of amends did you make to Mrs. Fry?
More than I needed to. More than I needed to.
Apparently not.
Apparently
Because
not.
she's still
Like what?
Right.
And let me just make something clear to you. That amends part doesn't have to do if it's enough of what you wanted to do. You have to make amends until the person to whom you're making amends feels
If
whole
it's safe,
again.
if it's safe to make amends
He
to that
doesn't
person.
care. He doesn't
You believe
care.
it's not safe.
At times, Your Honor.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why you call the police on me every
Yeah.
chance you get.
Yeah,
The
at
police
times,
officers are
yes.
always at our house, and all they say to us is you guys need to divorce each other.
Tell me when the last time you called the police, what happened and why?
They told Ms. Fry she needed to shut up because they couldn't hear her.
Yeah,
Couldn't
but
hear
they made you leave though.
I asked to leave.
No,
I wanted
you
to
didn't.
leave.
Stop.
I called the police because I couldn't leave without taking a chance of something busting me in the back of my head, without my windows being broke in my car.
Right.
I called the police to safely leave.
Rodney.
Gotcha.
To safely leave. That's the only reason I called the police.
You're full
to
of it.
safely leave.
You're full of it.
I'm going to stop right here.
Wow.
And I'm going to, no, we're going to talk about this in
Wow.
depth because the level of anger is beyond what I originally understood.
I agree.
So my understanding is that the level of anger in your household has gotten so bad that the police have to be called. How many times has anyone called the police?
Can't even count anymore.
About 4 times, yeah.
No, that's
About
not
4 times.
true. You've been calling the police on me ever since our children have been little because you have been doing stuff that you can't even remember.
But Mrs. Fry, I mean, Joe, you've had those families where you've come to know everybody in the
Yeah,
family.
known by name.
Because they keep calling and calling and calling. Is that the kind of household you're in?
No, because we're always moving. We don't stay in the same house.
So it's different police officers.
It's different police
responding.
officers, different districts.
Yeah.
Different police officers, different districts because we're always getting evicted because Mr. Fry can't hold a job down more than a year. He says that these jobs are below him, that my job doesn't pay enough. Why should he get a job like mine? Well, at least I have one. I'm supporting him and paying for his dental, those glasses
She don't
you have
support
on,
me.
those
You
clothes
don't
you got on your
support
back.
me for nothing. Now,
Okay.
Cherise, stop lying. You do not support me for anything.
When you say she doesn't support you, what do you mean?
What is she saying? What do you say what you say? How do you support me?
No. Mr. Fry, let's do this. This is just too much.
It is.
I'm going to have to adjourn because I think you guys have been married 30 years. You have paid the piper. Now I want to try to get through the rough stuff so we can get to the good stuff at the end. And that's what I'm going to try to do. We need to reconvene.
I agree.
This matter is adjourned.
Because I always will be an addict. Not an active addict, but there's no support from her for this. When I go to the meetings and come home, she make me feel like poop.
You say that I'm not there for you, you're not there for me. You just beat me down daily. You treat the dog better than you treat me.
You've been through hell. We've already done that. But you keep going back there because you can't hear one another.
Sure, I've done so much wrong, but I've done so much right since then. And for her to keep living in the past, there'll never be a future. There'll never be a future.